Omagyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurnilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this program is going on daily, is it?
Yes.
During Ramadan?
Yes, Maharaj.
It's only for Ramadan?
Yes, Maharaj. And all the other times, we do once in a week, every Tuesday.
Otherwise you do once in a week. And you're going through the Bhagavatam?
Yes, Maharaj.
And how much do you cover at each point, in each session?
We cover one shloka in a day.
One shloka, that's very good. Yeah, that's good in the sense that every verse of Bhagavatam is so rich that it can be discussed in detail. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Krishna Tula Bhagavat Vibhu Sarvashray Prati Shloke Prati Akare Nana Artha Koi, which means that Krishna Tulya Bhagavat, Srimad Bhagavatam, is on the same level as Krishna. Vibhu, powerful. Sarvashray, gives ashray to everyone, shelter to everyone. And in every verse and every syllable, there are many different meanings. Of course, the basic meaning is the same. It's not that Srimad Bhagavatam is to be interpreted in various ways. The basic understanding is the same. The Siddhanta, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So by saying that there are many meanings, means that there are various nuances. Not that you can just take any meaning you like out of it. That is a wrong understanding, which many people have in the name of spiritual life, that you can just understand reality as you like it. You make your own truth. Truth is what you perceive it to be, but turn the echo off. Such an understanding means that there's no need for Shastra anyway. Then why do you need any Shastra? Shastra means which gives knowledge. Shastra is also to be understood from Guru, because Shastra may be understood by one's, or one may attempt to understand Shastra by one's own intelligence, but it is a descending process, not that just one simply just tries to read. Not simply by Sanskrit knowledge can one understand. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, there are many words which are used again and again. If we find in Bhagavad Gita, we find again and again the words dharma, atma, yoga. These are some examples of words which are used again and again. And there are many other words also, just like buddhi, karma, karta, purusha. So, what exactly a word means in a particular context, that has to be understood by those. So that is explained by those who are tattvadarshi, those who understand actually what's going on. Otherwise, there are various misunderstandings. Bhagavad Gita, I know when I first saw Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, I was struck by the strangeness of the title. So it's a very strange title. Why Bhagavad Gita as it is? If it's Bhagavad Gita, then it's Bhagavad Gita. Just like you don't go into... Well, nowadays you do actually. You'll find... You want to buy some water and you may find there's a label, real water, which suggests that that's not much help. which suggests that a lot of the other stuff that you get is not really water at all. I mean, the strangeness of buying water to drink. Nowadays it's just considered normal. But then or an apple, a real apple, and then, well, maybe nowadays they will have that. Yes, there was a request to turn the cell phones off, but everyone thinks it doesn't apply to it. It's the door. Why don't you turn that off too? In some churches in the West, they have a good rule that anyone who comes after the lecture starts, they don't allow them in. Good in the sense that if you're serious enough, you could come on time. So Bhagavad Gita as it is, because many people take Bhagavad Gita and they just give their own interpretation. They don't, it's not in this, as Srila Prabhupada just right to the point, aptly points out in his introduction that it should be taken in the same spirit that Arjuna understood it. Sarva me tadritang manye yanmang vadasi Keshava. Whatever you have said, Krishna, I accept that as Rita, which means the underlying, it's a synonym for Satya, truth. So I accept as true everything that you say. So, interpretations of Bhagavad Gita according to one's own intelligence or one's own interpretation is useless. So we have to hear from Guru. The Guru has to be in Parampara. Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. These are the three authorities. And through this method, through these three, which are non-different, and the point is that they should be non-different. The Guru doesn't speak anything which is outside of Srimad Bhagavatam. Gita, Bhagavatam, Shastra, the general term is Shastra. And Srimad, both Gita and Bhagavatam are the essence of all Shastra. Gita, concisely, Bhagavatam, elaborately. They're both the essence of all Shastra. They both establish Vedesya sarveraham eva vedyaha. Krishna is the object of knowledge in the Vedas. Which means he's the object of knowledge because Veda means knowledge. He is who is to be known. He is the subject matter to be known. We find also in the Bhagavatam, Vedyam vastavam atra vastu. This Srimad Bhagavatam is the actual knowledge of the Vedas. It is given in great detail, what is given in Bhagavatam. So human life is meant for this. For everything else you do is incidental. Eating, sleeping, mating and defending, that goes on. And in the modern age that means going to work, earning money. This is not the purpose of life, nor is sense gratification the purpose of life. In fact, the very idea that sense gratification is the purpose of life is addressed both in Gita and Bhagavatam as foolishness. In Gita we have, Krishna states, Yehi sangsparshaja bhoga dukha yone evate adyanta vanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. Intelligent people don't take part in the sources of misery, which are sense gratification, which beginning, middle and end is no pleasure. It's just a, we also, so intelligent people don't take part in that, which means that foolish people do. In Bhagavatam, in many places, because it's more elaborate, that is addressed. Prahlad Maharaj talks about Shruti Sukh, the pleasure that's heard about, that's all. It doesn't actually, it's just an imagination in the mind. Also, we have in Rishabdev's teachings, Nunang pramata kurute vikarma yadindriya pritiya aprinote nasadu manya yata atmanoyam asana piklesha da asadeha People are fools who take part in the Indriya Priti, acting for the pleasure of the senses, because it simply causes them to be born again and again and to suffer again and again. And especially those who perform sinful activities, even those who perform pious activities for the sake of sense gratification, what do they get? Gata gatam, coming and going, up and down. So, better to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Hear the Shastra. Hear about Krishna. Krishna Katha. There are two types of Krishna Katha. Krishnasya Katha, that which is directly spoken by Krishna, which is in Bhagavad Gita, and also in Bhagavatam there is much which is spoken by Krishna, especially much of the 11th canto of Bhagavatam concerns Krishna's instructions to Uddhava, which is the same instruction as Bhagavad Gita but in a more detailed form. So both have their facility. Gita gives you everything in concise form, so you get it's because in concise form you can get the essence very easily, and then more detail is given there in Uddhava Gita, what's called Uddhava Gita, Krishna. And throughout Bhagavatam we find Krishna himself speaking. In the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, Krishna also gives instructions. It's not only within the pastimes, there's Krishna's giving instruction. And in other cantos also. In fact, the whole Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna Tulya Bhagavat. But still there's a distinction between that which is spoken directly by Krishna in his various forms also. We find Nrsimhadev gives instruction, and various forms of the Lord. Instructions of them are recorded in Bhagavatam. But the Bhagavatam is principally Krishna Vishaya Katha. There's Krishnasya Katha and Krishna Vishaya Katha. Krishna Vishaya Katha means discussion in which Krishna is the subject. Discussion about Krishna. So Sri Bhagavan Uvacha we find again and again in Bhagavad Gita. And then the first occurrence of that term in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Srila Prabhupada gives some explanation of what is the meaning of the term Bhagavan. Because it's become a very cheap thing. Any rascal will call himself Bhagavan, just like there's this so-called Bhagavan Rajneesh. Oh, just a complete rascal. So, Srila Prabhupada describes what is the meaning of this term, and it's also important that he also points out it's not, Vyasadeva didn't say Sri Krishna Uvacha. There are many names of Krishna which do occur in Bhagavad Gita. The name Krishna, Chanchalangi Mana Krishna, for instance. And there are many other names, Govinda, Madhusudan, Keshav. Many names are given of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, either by Arjuna addressing Krishna or by Sanjaya speaking. Tamuvacha Hrishikesha, that's Sanjay is describing to Dhritarashtra. Hrishikesh, another name is given. But specifically, Vyasadeva gives Sri Bhagavan Uvacha to establish that this is most authoritative. Yasvayam Padmanabhasya Mukha Padmad Venisrita. This is directly spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead from his very mouth. So, Sri Bhagavan means Aishvaryasya Samagrasya Viryasya Yashasya Shriyaha Jnanavairagya Yoshchaiva Shandam Bhaga Itingena, who has all the qualities in full, Purna Purusha, who has full Aishvarya. Aishvarya means the quality by which one is Ishvara. The quality of the controller is usually translated as opulence, wealth, power. There are various kinds of power, physical strength. Now has become part of middle class Indian culture, which wasn't there until recently. The urban culture, go to the gym, get a strong body, big muscles. Of course, we don't see Krishna with big muscles. We don't see Krishna rippling muscles, but still, he lifts up Govardhan even as a child, even without going to any gym. So, Krishna doesn't need to go to any gym to become strong. So that's one kind of strength, and there are different kinds of strength. Power also, political power. That's another kind of strength. Strength of mind. So various kinds of strength, and Krishna has them all in full. So and fame, beauty. This is a good test. We always used to say there was one extraordinarily ugly person who was advertised as being Bhagavan in South India. And then he was in a wheelchair for some time, and then he died, as every conditioned soul died. So this was a good line for telling people these are the qualities of God. You want to call him Bhagavan? Well, you don't have to go further than this quality. He's definitely not the most beautiful. Maybe the most ugly. Maybe. But definitely not the most beautiful. So, all beauty is Krishna, is Bhagavan. Yeah, we should say Bhagavan. This is the definition of Bhagavan. Then all knowledge, and for instance, the very fact that he spoke Bhagavad Gita shows that. Is all knowledge and all renunciation. So this term Bhagavan is fitting for Krishna and no one else. So practically we can say the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is an exposition of the term Bhagavan. Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How he is Bhagavan is the subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. How he is all opulent, all powerful, all famous, all beautiful, all knowledgeable, and all renounced. That is the subject matter. The subject matter is Bhagavan, therefore Bhagavat Purana. So this is the proper subject to hear about. Shrotavya kirtitavyascha. And to glorify. And to remember, this is the proper subject. And this is the real Indian culture. I mean, there's no harm in doing exercise. That's also, Indian culture is not impractical, is not wholly otherworldly. There's much practical advice also. But to have a healthy body without Krishna consciousness is completely useless. Then you become a monkey is also very healthy. But Krishna consciousness is the point. A healthy life should be there as far as possible. It's difficult to have a healthy life in the modern world. For all the so-called progress, people are more and more unhealthy. They think it's a great thing to set up a cancer hospital. But there was no need for cancer hospitals previously because people didn't get cancer because they weren't eating poisoned food and breathing poisoned air and living a poisonous life. So they think it's, such a great thing to set up a cancer hospital. hearing Bhagavatam. That will remove the disease of the heart. Hrit Kama Roga. The worst heart disease is that, what is that? Kama. And from Kama is the great enemy. And Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita. And Kama also comes with, in Bhagavatam is described, there is one term for anger, Kamanuja, means the younger brother. After Kama, just so you've heard Ramanuja, so there's Kamanuja. That term is given there in Bhagavatam. Ramanuja name, of course, is not exactly a name of who's also known as Lakshman Deshika, who appeared in Sri Perambador, which is now part of what is called the state of Tamil Nadu. That name is a name of Lakshman, the brother of Rama. So the name was there before. It's also a name for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Generally it's used for Lakshman, and now it's become identified with who is known as the great Acharya of the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. So that name is there, Kamanuja. So Krodha, it means anger. So with Kama comes Krodha. It's a whole package. It's people often say, well, I have a problem with anger. How can I control anger? And then it's a case of material desire. And this all comes from ahankar, a sense of identification of the self as being not the servant of Krishna. So Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moha, Mada, Matsarya. All this is the heart disease. And that should be cleansed by hearing Bhagavatam. As stated in Bhagavatam, Nashta prayesh vabhadreshu nityang bhagavate sevaya bhagavatutam ashloke bhakti bhavate naishtaki. That the cleansing of the heart takes place by hearing Bhagavatam. Shrinvatang swakata krishna punya shravana kirtana vidyantasto hiya bhadrani vidhunoti suhrit satam. The cleansing comes about by hearing Bhagavatam. Also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us, Cheto Darpara Marjanam, by chanting the names of Krishna. So it's a cleansing. This is required to hear Bhagavatam. This is the crux of Indian culture. The crux of Indian culture is not that everyone is eating idlis and then the Aryans invaded and they brought chapatis. Aryan invade. North Indians eat chapatis and South Indians eat idlis. Because the North Indians, they're the Aryan invaders. The chapatis or idlis, that's not the crux of the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture, the crux is that we should live our life in such a way that we hear about Krishna and remember Krishna. Manmana bhava mad bhakto. This verse is there. Srila Prabhupada comments that one should mold his life in such a way that he can always think of Krishna. 24 hours a day. So this hearing Bhagavatam means to hear about Krishna. Yesterday, Mataji told me, means Sri Vallabh's mother. That's also Indian culture. Anyone know that? They don't do that nowadays. You say the name of the woman's name, and if you're going to say, then you say the name of the son. Like that. I don't think anyone does this anymore. But at least in Bangladesh, used to be. In South India, Tamil Nadu, still some people are doing.
Woman is named after the son.
Yeah, you will never know what her actual name is. So, so yesterday she told me that, we're reading Bhagavatam and tomorrow we're going to just Kardamuni and then Kapila Deva. I'm very excited and happy about that. So, that is very nice that we should be excited about Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada was excited, means he was, his life was Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada told us, I happened to be present in one lecture in which Srila Prabhupada said that we should make Srimad Bhagavatam our life. And it's very clear that Srimad Bhagavatam was Srila Prabhupada's life, and this is life. This earning money, getting fashionable clothes, sending your kids to the best schools, so-called best school, best, and get slaughtered in the best possible way. This is not life. Becoming a so-called success in this life and next life, becoming a worm in stool or a giraffe or a hippopotamus or a snake or a cat, or there are 8 million varieties. Take your pick. What do you want? Everyone gets what they want by the grace of Krishna. That we also find out from Bhagavatam. Karmana daivanetrena jantur deho papataye. So, real life means to be absorbed in Krishna. And Krishna thought comes from chanting Hare Krishna and hearing Bhagavatam. And this is the great culture that has made India great. The greatness of India is not the Reliance or Tata or Manmohan Singh or... That wasn't meant as a joke. Maybe it is a joke, but I wasn't deliberately trying to insult him. The greatness is the spiritual culture. And the heart of them, it means the Vedic culture. And Vedic culture means Vedeshcha sarvaraham eva vedaha. And Bhagavatam is Vedyam Vastavamatravā. So the Bhagavatam is the essence of Vedic culture. So to hear Bhagavatam regularly means not only cleansing the heart, but one will become attached to Krishna. One will like to hear about Krishna. So we are also enjoined that to become rasiks, to enjoy the rasa of Srimad Bhagavatam. Mohoraho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. We should go on hearing, get this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. And materialistic people are never satisfied. And devotees, they should also not be satisfied. In another way, vayang tuna vritripyama uttama shloka vikrame yat chinvatam rasagyanam swadu swadu pade pade. Should not be satisfied. No, I didn't hear enough about Krishna. I want to hear some more. Let us hear more and more. So that was very encouraging that Mataji is so enthusiastic. Oh, you're going to hear about Kadamuni and then Kapila Deva, and it's just nectar, bliss. So it is. One salient point, to use that cliche, is that when I think about the section of Kadamamuni in Bhagavatam, I think about so many instructions Srila Prabhupada gave on family life. That's because I read Prabhupada's translations and purports. Now, if we see the previous acharyas, we won't find so many instructions. But Srila Prabhupada points out how family life should be lived. And interestingly, what we find in Bhagavatam and Ramayana and Mahabharata about family life and how family life is. Of course, Mahabharata is quite kaleidoscopic. And we even find there that in Mahabharata, that at one point there wasn't any family. I mean, there wasn't any marriage. And that was instituted by the words of one Brahmin who I don't remember, because you have to have a better memory than mine to remember all the characters in Mahabharata. Of course, mostly people think it's the story of the Pandavas, but there are thousands of names in Bhagavatam. So there's a story there how one Brahmin boy, being disgusted at seeing his mother being taken off by someone else, because there was no institution of marriage, said, okay, from now on, marriage, one man, one woman should be attached with one man. And by his edict, it became dharma. So how is that understood? Well, we can understand that marriage is an internal function in human society. Krishna himself is married, so that's an eternal function. But at one point in Vedic culture, it wasn't solemnized, or there wasn't any official process. So there became a need for that at some point. So what was the point I was making? That throughout Shastra you'll find there's a regular pattern. There may be some nuances or discrepancies, but there's a regular pattern of how men and women live together in family life. There are different kinds of the point I'm making is that the basic culture is the same we find in Shastra. There may be definitely different within that Vedic culture. There are different cultural norms for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras. And even the way Kshatriyas get married can be, it's generally different to that of Brahmanas. They generally have the Rakshasa type of kidnapping the girl. And they can also have... Who did that? Well, Krishna himself did that. Famously with Rukmini. And Gandharva type of marriage we find is... I'm not sure if it's very common, but it is quite commonly related in Shastra. How, for instance, Arjuna and Bhim married various of their wives at the request of the girl. Also the... who's that? Dushyanta and Shakuntala. But that's not for Brahmins, that's for Kshatriyas. So they're somewhat different. But basically the culture is the same. And the same culture was going on, and is still going on to some extent in India today. But it's getting broken down in many ways. I was saying the salient point is that Srila Prabhupada, in his purports to the Karima Muni section, gives quite some detail about Vedic culture in respect to marriage and family life. Now, previous acharyas, they won't give so much, because one reason is it's not needed, because the people who are hearing the Bhagavatam, they hear it and they see it and they live it. They're living in that culture. And it's just accepted. Whereas Srila Prabhupada was bringing Bhagavatam to the Western world, in which the ideas of, or the whole concept of culture and marriage, which is a major point of culture, was in some ways similar, but in some ways different. I mean, the very idea of marriage is for humans. Generally, dogs don't get married. In some stray parts of Indian culture, you could get dogs married, or you could marry someone to a dog, a girl to a dog, or you can marry a girl to a banana tree, because it's stated in Shastra that every girl has to get married. So if you don't find a husband for some reason or other, then you could marry her to a banana tree. I don't know if it's in Shastra, but it's a folk practice, used to be. How do you like that? You like to be married to a banana tree? You can get shadi.com. what kind of banana tree do you like best? Well, maybe it's a good idea, actually. I mean, save all the trouble of having a husband. And with modern genetic engineering, I mean, you could maybe take a gene from the banana tree and have a baby that way too. You never know. You have to be careful. You know, all this genetic engineering, you eat a tomato and you hear in, like Dasharatha gave his, in many cases, they give the payasam to the wife and then they give birth, and that might happen. Now with the payasam, with all the genetic modification, you might, the wife might give birth to a banana. You never know. Because it's all genetically modified. Anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, marriage, it's in all cultures has been understood as a sacred ritual. Ritual is a sacred ritual. That man and woman don't just come together like dogs and cats on the street in the night. You hear the cats making some horrible noise. That means they're getting romantic. But it's supposed to be that you're supposed to have marriage, and marriage doesn't just mean that, okay, do you like me? Yeah. Want to get married? Okay. Okay, then go and sign. And then after some time, if you don't like, then you can sign again, divorce. But marriage is supposed to be, in the Christian marriage ceremony, they say, until death us do part. In sickness or in health, in happiness or distress, in wealth or poverty, we shall remain together till death us do part. And God bless us. Something like that. I can't remember. I attended many marriages. Christian marriages, but I can't remember exactly because I wasn't listening that carefully. But the famous lines are there, till death us do part. And it was like that. There was no such thing as divorce. Maybe in Islam it's there, but at least in Christianity and Hinduism, probably most of Buddhism, there was no, because it was considered a sacred, something sacred. But in the Vedic culture, there are many more specifics of the duties of the husband, the duties of the wife, and then nowadays the idea of a family is the famous hum do, hamare do, but previously, and there's also Bahusas thing going on, but previously there was, family means big family. Many people together, how they relate to each other, and then how you relate to your elder brother, elder sister, your elder brother's wife, your younger brother's wife. There's so many relationships, and so it's a whole big thing. Nowadays, especially at the present time, just a few days ago, the U.S. Supreme Court gave permission for marriages for homosexuals, which completely redefines the whole conception. Already it's been redefined by divorce, no-fault divorce, which means just both of them say that, well, there's no real reason to get divorced, but we just don't want to be married anymore. And you can just legally, if they both agree, then you can just sign a paper and it's all over. So all these man-made rules have changed the whole understanding of marriage. But Srila Prabhupada, he described in some detail in this Karima Muni section about what is the psychology and the behind the Vedic culture. Generally, all over the world, in most societies, the male traditionally has taken a prominent role, and the female a subordinate and submissive role. And Srila Prabhupada explains about that, and especially in Vedic culture, it's been a major point. Srila Prabhupada explains why that is so and why that is desirable. It certainly not the norm in the modern world. But Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish what he considered sane society, in which the Vedic principles, they are for sane society. Srila Prabhupada saw the modern world as insane. And when I say when Srila Prabhupada saw like that, then we take that to be a fact. So Prabhupada's explanation of Bhagavatam is very different in many ways to those of the previous acharyas. Of course, it is very much the same also. It's completely in line with the previous acharyas, exactly the same philosophy. But Srila Prabhupada gave much social direction, which wasn't necessary previously. Social direction one would get from the culture one lived in, from the gurus, which means the elders, not only the directly initiating gurus. And that would also, a lot of culture is absorbed by hearing Ramayana, Mahabharata. Bhagavatam is not so much meant for that. Bhagavatam is not so much meant for cultural inculturation or cultural direction, but it's meant for the very essence of Vedic culture, which is Krishna consciousness. But Srila Prabhupada found it necessary to give many instructions on Vedic culture, because he wanted to re-establish that. Or in the Western world, when we say it's practically too established because it's been lost for so long. The Vedic culture was there in the West also, but it's been lost for so long that they have no idea of it. And of course, Christianity, when it came, they deliberately destroyed all the old culture which was there. There was what we would nowadays call Hinduism all over the world, but with the ascendancy of Christianity, they just destroyed the old culture, and they were very proud of that also. That there was one bishop writing from South America, how he's boasting how he's destroyed so many temples of the heathens. They thought they were doing a good thing. So Srila Prabhupada's purports, they are at the same time completely in line with the acharyas, the previous acharyas, and at the same time giving instruction of a kind that the previous acharyas the previous Vaishnava acharyas didn't touch much or bother much with. But it's a changing world, and it's changing for the worse. So Srila Prabhupada, he brought the Srimad Bhagavatam to the modern world, to the Western world, and presented it. One of the great gifts of Srila Prabhupada was to present the teachings and philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and apply it to the modern context. And that is special gift of Srila Prabhupada, which his disciples and discipular followers, they have to maintain that spirit. Because one of the accusations against religion in general is that it is otherworldly. In other words, it's just concerned with what the atheists consider to be some imaginary world, or people, they're not practical and concerned with this world. That's one of the accusations of atheists against religionists, and they say that it just puts people in some kind of dream world where they're not interested in material progress. Well, actually that's a fact. If one does become absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam, then he won't become interested in material progress. But then to be interested in material progress is an anartha. It is something which is against our real self-interest. Materialistic people, of course, they have a completely opposite outlook, and they think that Pandit Nehru, called Pandit because he was born in a Brahmin family. His idea, which very much has affected the course of India since its so-called independence, has been that India has had too much religion, which has hindered the progress of the nation. So the factories and dams, these will be the temples of the new India. That was Nehru's idea. So he'd be very happy now to go to see all the big factories and all the pollution, and I'm sure he'd be very happy. He's maybe there also. We don't know where he is. We can't imagine that he had a very good destination, but he might be happy to see. But what is the actual benefit of all this? The actual purpose of life is not served by factories and dams, and even materially it causes so many problems, and for future generations they're going to, for our indulgence, future generations will have to suffer more. And even now we're suffering. I just saw yesterday a report that 2 million people annually, mostly in South Asia, which means mostly in India, die from diseases caused by air pollution, directly caused by air pollution. So mostly in Indian cities, they're highly polluted, and people die from complications, about 2 million a year. It's not a small number. And there are so many things. Once you start talking about it, there's no end to it. There's thousands of farmers are committing suicide thanks to modern progress, Monsanto seeds, and all the other problems. Now you have to buy seeds. Farmers didn't buy seeds previously. Now you have to buy them, taking a loan, and so on and so on. There are so many things. One of the things that Srila Prabhupada pointed out in his purpose, how he related the teachings of the Bhagavad. Let me talk about that first of all. Otherworldly. So, in a sense, the Vedic culture is very practical also. There are all kinds of directions which are now not very well known, but on Ayurveda and economics and politics and social life. I was talking about family life. That's the family unit is the basic function of society. So there's science and mathematics and all kinds of things. Using Jyotish, one can calculate what time the sun will rise tomorrow morning in Dubai, using ancient Indian science. So they knew about the movements of the planets, and so it wasn't that they were primitive. All these they say the Greeks invented all this pi and all this kind. Pi is a Greek word. So that's what is that? The circumference of a circle divided by the diameter. And it's 3.2, 3.147. There was someone who mentally did it to 20,000 places. Just he sat down and he said, do, and he went on for 20,000 places. Isn't that amazing? There's no end. But anyway, I'm making the point that for making yagyashalas, the dimension, there have to be, for instance, there are different kinds of designs for the yagya vedi, and it might be in the design of a bird or something, but it had to be exactly in this size. So how do you calculate the exact size when there's a complex shape? If it's a rectangle, it's easy. If it's a circle, it's easy. But if it's a very complex shape, how do you do that? Advanced geometry is required. So that was there. So all that practical stuff, there's tons of practical stuff, much of which is lost nowadays. But the focus of Indian culture was on the or the highest focus is on our ultimate aim, the spiritual aim. That's why Srimad Bhagavatam is the top. Nigama kalpatara galitam phalam. It's the topmost fruit of the desire tree of the Vedic knowledge. So you could say that Srimad Bhagavatam or the Vedic culture is otherworldly. Just like you'll become absorbed in hearing about Karima Muni and Kapila and Nrsimhadev and Krishna. People say, what's all that? Just go out and do some work, or go to the gym, or go watch a movie. What's that got to do with anything real? But this is real. That's the understanding. The Vedic knowledge giving all understanding of all branches of knowledge then says, well, anyway, all this material world, after giving vast amounts of knowledge on every subject imaginable, then Krishna sums it all up in Bhagavad Gita, the whole material world, dukhalayam ashashvatam. It's a place of misery where everything is temporary. So don't bother too much about it. Hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So people may say that is otherworldly. That's not connected with our real life here. But Srila Prabhupada in his purports, one of his great gifts is that he related the Bhagavatam, which you might say is some arcane Indian culture, something from the past. Pandit Nehru said it's all, what do we need that for? We need factories and dams. But Srila Prabhupada brought this knowledge and showed how it's absolutely opposite or applicable to modern life. To life in... And just like, for instance, the Karima Muni section, when Srila Prabhupada would talk, in it he gives quite extensive purports about relationship between husband and wife, and you may think, well, that was something in the past. But no, it applies today also. And if people are raised in human culture, actually human culture, then they can understand, appreciate this. Otherwise, what we find in the modern world is that the relationship between man and woman is just on the animal platform. That's all. Just for sex, that's all. Pungsastriya mituni bhavametam tayoraho hridaya grantimahu. The basic principle, this is Srimad Bhagavatam. I don't know if you heard all these verses. I hope you have. Srimad Bhagavatam states that the basic principle of human existence is the attraction between man and woman, and when they join together, there's a hard knot on the heart formed. But nowadays, in the modern age, they think, you see, when we come together, then we get attracted, and then what comes after that? Ato griha kshetra sutabde vitaya. Then you get involved with home, family, relatives, children, how to earn money. And so they think, okay, we'll just get together for fun, and that's it, finished. And then we don't bother with anything else. So just like dogs in the street, that's all. Exactly there, and they call this advanced culture. So, Srila Prabhupada, he also commented a lot about this, because in modern so-called culture, the emphasis is so much on this, which Prahlad Maharaj, he describes to the itching sensation. Kundutivan. What is that? Kundutivan. Manasijam. That's the important word. It's just this attraction that is born from the mind. That's all. Like the itching. Kandutivan manasijam vishaheta dhira. Therefore, a sober person should tolerate that. Don't be attracted by this sexual attraction. Don't be overcome. But the modern society is just focused on that. Here in Dubai, because of the Islamic influence, they're quite strict about this. It's not so open. But actually here also, it's the basic principle of material existence is the attraction between male and female. And when that's emphasized more and more, then it becomes dog and cat life, as Srila Prabhupada would say. So Srila Prabhupada in his purports, he describes all these things because we are raised in such a bad culture that we think that this is good. And especially in the Western world. But when we say the Western world, that's the Eastern world also, because this culture is so pervasive and pernicious. And although in the Eastern world there's still some more conservatism, you could say, but it's changed. It's not what it used to be. So Srila Prabhupada's purports, he shows how the teachings of Bhagavatam, what we can learn from that and apply that in the modern milieu. And understand from the teachings of Gita and Bhagavatam how this modern society is all simply cheating, rascaldom, bogus, because everyone thinks, oh, it's great, it's wonderful. And if there's anything wrong, we just have to make some adjustments. Like we'll have, just like they say, we'll have cleaner air with clean fuel. Clean fuel means it doesn't poison you as much as the other one. The less carbon emissions, but still it's poisoning you. It's not clean, it's just less dirty, that's all. So all this cheating, they say that, oh, we want to find alternative sources of fuel. But why? Why do you need alternative source of fuel? You need to eat, you need to have shelter, you need clothing, roti kapra makan. These are the material needs, and the real need is to remember Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada gave these really revolutionary ideas. No one is thinking of this. That simplify life and concentrate on Krishna. The real purpose of life is not to have 50 pairs of shoes and 500 saris and salwar kameez sets and suits and ties and jewels and TV set in every room. This is not at all the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to remember Krishna. Otherwise, at the time of death, you have, anyway, you lose everything, whatever you got. So you may say you end up with zero, but that's not correct. You end up with minus, because you have all your sinful activities, which the result goes with you. This we learn from Bhagavatam. They don't teach you this in school. Therefore, Prabhupada said it's a slaughterhouse, because they don't teach you this, the thing that you got this human life after millions of births, and the thing you need to know, they don't teach you that, and instead they just teach you a bunch of lies. Get money, be a success, enjoy yourself, all lies. They're all cheaters. Everyone in the whole materialistic society means they're all cheaters and cheated. And people become very disturbed to hear this, but it's a fact. Even the people we think, oh, great people, Mother Teresa, oh, what a great saint. What great saint, rascal? She's eating meat every day. How is she a great saint? Dalai Lama, another rascal, talks of peace and eats meat every day. Of course, we may not say this in public, but it's a fact. Srila Prabhupada wouldn't put in the Bhagavatam purport, but in private he would give the example that these are the people. You think these are great people. What great people? And charity organizations, welfare, they're doing such great work for the people, helping the poor, suffering. Prabhupada points out there are many charitable organizations which are cheating people in the name of helping others, collecting money and using it for sense gratification. I saw that in Bangladesh. I was living in Bangladesh for some time. In the city, they'd have all these welfare organizations with big offices and air condition, and living comfortably. I was traveling in the villages. I never saw any of these welfare organizations in the villages. They're just taking the money and living comfortably. So this whole idea, we'll help others. Mother Teresa helped the poor. She did so much great work for the poor. And still there are so many poor in Calcutta. Then what did she help them? Same thing. CPIM, we're helping the underdogs. But still, there are poor people. So the idea that, this whole idea that religion means to help the poor, but some Christian priest came to see Srila Prabhupada in America, and he said, they asked him, what are you doing to help the poor? And Prabhupada quoted the Bible, that Jesus said, the poor will always be with you. You can't avoid. But according to karma, some people are going to be poor. You might think you'll go to America and everyone's rich. You'll find so many beggars begging on the street. Been to America? You'll find, please give $1. They'll hold up a sign. The people standing at the stoplight, just like in India at the stoplight they have. Of course, they're professional. They're earning more money than the people in the cars. Maybe. But in America, you see, please spare $1 for an ex-Vietnam soldier. But if they say that, then they don't know. They don't like to help the Vietnam soldiers. So it's all this idea that you can remove poverty, we'll do some scheme. There'll always be poor people. I mean, even with all the government schemes, there are people, if you give them money, they'll take it, whatever money they get, they'll drink it all, and again, 5 minutes later, they'll be poor again. Because of uncontrolled senses. But people love, welfare organization, helping people, so good. And then now they have this thing in India, what's that called? Corporate responsibility. That the big corporation, what's it called?
Corporate social responsibility.
Yeah, so the big corporations, they're making huge amounts of money, and they're supposed to put, how much is it, 1% or 2% of their profits into helping the society. And they love this, what we're doing to help the society, just like, now we're feeding we're feeding the children so they can go to school. The big businessmen think we're helping the nation and we're helping the children. What they're doing, they need children to be educated so they can work in their corporations. So they're helping themselves in the name of helping the poor. Their so-called philanthropy, it's for their own material greed, that they're not satisfied that they're making billions of dollars. They still want more, or thousands of crores of rupees. But they like, and they'll show, oh yes, we're helping the poor. And they're thinking, we're helping the people so much. We're giving them jobs. And then people were starving before you came. Now they're starving after you came. Now they're opening hospitals. But we don't hear about hospitals in Vedic culture or any culture. There's no such thing. This heart attack, cancer, stress, high blood pressure, people didn't have these things previously. It's all part of modern life. They say, don't eat ghee. Yeah. Otherwise you'll get a heart attack. But previously people used to eat lots of ghee and milk and yogurt, and then people aren't getting heart attacks. They say stop ghee and eat safflower oil. But previously people ate ghee and they didn't have heart attacks. Now they say don't eat ghee, it's very bad for health. You take safflower, make the safflower oil and chemically refine it, and if there's any goodness in it at all, which is doubtful, and destroy all that, and then put it in a plastic bottle to add some more poison, and sell it. And you'll be healthy. And if you're not healthy, you can come to our hospital, and all your life you've worked and all your savings can go in getting treatment for cancer. And anyway, you'll die at the end. So the Prabhupada pointed out all these things. There's so much cheating, so much, all lying, cheating, everything, the whole society, top to bottom, inside out. So, while reading Srimad Bhagavatam, please take Srila Prabhupada's purports very seriously. Srila Prabhupada is speaking, we may think, well, what's really important is the text, because that's Shastra, that's coming from Krishna. But the purport's also coming from Krishna. Krishna speaks through Prabhupada. So, and we shouldn't think, well, we like all the very spiritual things, but Prabhupada's comments are required about the world that we live in are also important. Because he exposes all the nonsense. As long as we have wrong ideas, then we can't have the right idea. As long as we have the wrong idea, that means we're living in untruth. We need to live in the truth. And everything is cheating. Practically, it's just like if you see something advertised as healthy food, you can know for sure you shouldn't eat it. Because if they're advertising it, that means that they need to try and promote it. There's something, anything that comes in a packet, a bottle, or practically anything. It's just like you see, drink the water out of the bottle, plastic bottle. Plastic is poisonous. What are you going to do? Don't eat, don't drink, don't breathe. What can you do? Everything's poisonous. So, yeah, Srila Prabhupada, he pointed this all out because we have the wrong ideas. And we have this idea, progress, modern society is very good, and all these welfare workers, they're very good. And actually these big businessmen, actually they're all very good, and they really care for us. You see, they're opening hospital. After they've poisoned you with all their chemicals in their factories, then they open a hospital, and they make a profit on that too. First they make you work, first they send you to a school and say, build a school, we're helping the people. They charge you fees to go to that. So you start your life with all debts because of going to school and university. Then you work all your life, you pay off your debts, and you get some money and you think, now I can retire peacefully. And then you get cancer, and then you have to go to their hospital and spend all your money in their hospital. So, and they say, well, we're helping people. You see, we're giving them jobs, and we're developing the nation, and we're opening schools and hospitals. They're all rascals. I didn't say it. Prabhupada said it. And Prabhupada, he would quote, Krishna said it. What does Krishna say? Namang dushkirjana murha prapadyante naradhama maya pirhita jnana asarang bhavamashrita. All rascals, either fool rascals or lowest among mankind rascals, or supposedly very learned rascals, or just rascals. Asaram bhavam ashrita means just rascal. This means every other category. And practically, we see that Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse. He spoke on this much more than he spoke on Rasa Leela or Gopi Leela. Why is that? Gopi Leela is the ultimate, but hey, look, we're living in the world of rascals and we're misled by them, and we need to understand what is the fact, what is the reality. As long as we're misled by these rascals into thinking that we can live very happily in this world and everything here is very nice, and actually the rascals, they're not really rascals at all. As long as we're misled by all this, then we can't even begin to get a clear understanding of reality. So we should understand through Srila Prabhupada, who came to speak the truth that we need to hear. And Srila Prabhupada presented that all very elaborately in his Bhaktivedanta purports. If we read this, then we should not remain in illusion. We should come out of illusion. Bhagavatam is meant for that. Coming out of illusion. Distinguishing reality from illusion for the welfare of all. So don't be misled. Study Srila Prabhupada's books and understand how the teachings which are in Bhagavatam It's not simply some Indian stories or something that happened a long time ago. It's completely relevant to our life today. Hiranyakashipu was a long time ago, but the same mood of Hiranyakashipu is always there in human society. There's always some Hiranyakashipu. Maybe not such a big Hiranyakashipu, but actually these modern demons, they are very, very demoniac, very as harsh as Kamsa, who can kill babies. And they're doing it. Everyone is become a normal thing, kill babies. Oh, forgot to take the contraceptive. Now there's some vomiting in the morning. Oh, you know what that means? What does that mean? You better go get an abortion. It's a normal thing. Be absolutely normal. Abortion is just considered, what is that? It's child killing. They use the word garbhapat. But that's not the word in Sanskrit. That means miscarriage, accidental miscarriage. They use that word, but the word in Sanskrit for abortion is bhrun hatya, killing the embryo. And garbhapat means womb falling. So it means accidentally, if there's but they use the word garbhapat to cover the actual fact that they're committing murder. It's very sinful. People take it as normal. So when we read about Hiranyakashipu, we shouldn't think, well, that's some story a long time ago. It's the same thing going on now. Demons are misleading the world, and people previously knew that abortion is sinful. I mean, you don't have to, practically you don't even need a religious education to understand that it's sinful. It should be obvious to everyone, even without advanced spiritual education. There's a child formed in the womb, you don't kill it. But you see how influential these demons are. They educate to say, well, it's okay, it's normal, it's a good thing. Keeps the population down. And they have all kinds of reasoning. Well, you see, you didn't really want the child, so it wouldn't be looked after properly. Because they have no spiritual focus. They don't understand the purpose of human life is God realization. There are laws in the universe. It's not just the laws of physics, but it's the laws of nature. Means there are karmic laws. You can't avoid that. By your humanistic reasoning, you can't avoid reactions to sinful life. So these descriptions in the Bhagavatam, they're absolutely relevant to our present life. It's not something from just in the past. It's right now. Nrsimhadev is real. Hiranyakashipu. There's also big demons in the world. I mean, people are complaining about their making wars, CIA, giving us wrong propaganda. And there's now this whistleblower, Snowden, and he's saying, see, he wants to save from the tyranny of the government. But he doesn't. People don't see the tyranny of the government is not just in reading your emails. The tyranny of the government is in every facet of your life. The very fact that there's no plan whatsoever in human society for teaching what is the actual purpose of human life means that the whole society is demoniac from top to bottom. It's just like Srila Prabhupada sometimes gave the example, honesty among thieves. That the thieves, the gang of thieves, they steal money, and then among themselves they say, now we should divide the money morally. We should all get an equal share. But it's all stolen money, they're all thieves and rascals. And what can you expect? The strongest thief will kick the other thieves in the face and take it all for himself. The very principle is immoral, and then afterwards they're talking about morality. So the materialistic society, the whole principle is they want to kick Krishna in the face, the rascals. They want to forget Krishna. They want to think that we can do everything by ourselves, by our own science, and that we can understand everything. No need of God. And then they talk about morality. Oh, the government shouldn't look at other people's emails. It's an invasion of their privacy. But the government, the education system, the whole culture is from the start immoral. Where's the question of morality? And they have no idea what the purpose of life is. And therefore they can say abortion is okay. Free sex is okay. Opening factories which cause pain to Mother Earth and cause pollution, and to work in it means that your consciousness becomes hellish. The whole situation is hellish. Yeah, that's good. So it's so wrong. The whole society is so wrong and so bad. And Srila Prabhupada pointed this out in every facet. So we should be convinced of this. We can do that by carefully studying Srila Prabhupada's books with this attitude, Sarvam etadritang manye yang mang vadasi. Prabhupada. What Srila Prabhupada teaches is a fact. It's not just some sectarian dogma or what one person's opinion. No. It's all fact. So this studying Bhagavatam is exactly what we should be doing. This is very good. You please do this. Srila Prabhupada wanted to set up communities in which people live very simply and study Bhagavatam together and chant Hare Krishna together. Not that people are working long hours. No, just work what is required. Just for our bare necessities. People think, that's backward, just to live in a very simple way. We need iPods and what's that called? Templates? Tablets, and iPods, iPads, tablets, and bionic ears. We need all these things. Otherwise we're primitive. No, without Srimad Bhagavatam, it's primitive. It's advanced life means not to live with as much as possible, but to live with as little as possible. That's really advanced. For my satisfaction, I don't need this and this and that and that and something else and something more. Just satisfied with whatever you have and cultivate Krishna consciousness. That's advanced. But they've got it completely upside down, back to front, inside out. So better to live simply, chant Hare Krishna, study Prabhupada's books, discuss what is in there, and go back to Godhead and get out of this horrible world. Srila Prabhupada said that go back to Godhead in this life. Don't wait for another life. Don't think, I'll wait because it's getting so bad in Kali Yuga. The situation is getting so bad. And practically I'm seeing, I first heard that when I was first allowed in this movement in 1975. And I thought, I saw the whole situation in the world and said, it's really bad. It's really bad and it's getting worse. And Prabhupada said we shouldn't come back because it's such a hellish condition, getting worse and worse. But what I saw as so bad in 1975 that I had some realization that I don't want to be part of this modern world. It's horrible. There must be something better than this. There must be something categorically better than this. But now I'm seeing some almost 40 years later that even at that time I thought it was so bad, but I couldn't imagine how bad it has become in that 40 years or so, and how much worse it's getting, and it's the rate of things getting bad is increasing. And it seems there's no end to how demoniac these people can be. What nasty things people do to each other, and attitudes among people. And everything, I mean, even bodily health. It's in the modern age, it's a great struggle just to keep your body somewhat healthy. Of course, bodily health is not the goal of life, but it does help to practice Krishna consciousness, to not have to grossly struggle with health issues. But to have normal health in the modern age is abnormal, isn't it? If someone's 40 years old and they don't have some kind of problem, then that's unusual. And then as you get older, it's one thing after another, just struggle. And the newer generation, it's going to be worse and worse for them. So let's get out of this miserable material world and study Prabhupada's books and preach that to others also. It's a very powerful message. It's not the most palatable message, because people like to live in their dream world that, well, everything's nice, and if we just eat organic food, then everything will be okay. Well, everyone's got some idea of how everything's going to be okay, but the fact is, nothing's ever going to be okay unless we remember Krishna and put Krishna in the center of our lives, where we should put him. He is the center of our lives. We can't live without him. But we are stubbornly forgetting that. So let us remember Krishna by studying Srimad Bhagavatam and living as far as possible according to the way that Srila Prabhupada advised us to live. So, Hare Krishna. Any question about this? The child is killed in the embryo. Is it a karmic reaction? Quite possibly, but that still doesn't authorize. That means who kills the child in the womb, they also have to enter the womb and be killed. But that doesn't authorize anyone doing it. You may say that, well, I'm killing the child in the womb and that's their karmic reaction, but you are not appointed as Yamaraj. You become responsible for that sinful, grossly sinful activity. Okay, Hare Krishna. Please think about it. Think about it, at least think about it.